you guys doing?
All right, we got Coach Brad Conor with us here, so I'll let you kick it off, Mike.
Yeah, Brad, Coach Pry said you guys are going to kind of start narrowing down the competition at quarterback last week.
Yep.
You guys had the scrimmage on Saturday. Can you maybe kind of share how you guys went about splitting the reps for that and who's kind of, taking a step forward in the competition?
Yeah. Well, like we talked about from the beginning, it was tough getting 6 guys reps. We had to be creative with that early on, which I think we did a pretty good job of it. And kind of as we've gone along, we narrowed it down a little bit to maybe 4 guys during the scrimmage the other day getting reps. And with 2 guys, Jason Brown and Grant Wells getting the bulk of those reps. But obviously it's still an open contest. We're 9 practices in. We still have 2 scrimmages to look at. So we're still evaluating things every day.
What has set Jason and Grant Wells a little ahead of the pack then?
To be honest, I would say their experience. Jason's been in big games in the SEC there with South Carolina. Big in big moments and big environments. And, you can't replicate game experience. And I think that has shown, early on in spring ball with us. And then the same thing with Grant. Grant's had tons of game reps, game throws, been in those big environments. And, that kind of gave those guys a leg up, early on over the younger guys.
After you separate them like that, what do you look for as the competition goes on? What is sort of a differentiator in your mind when you see them on the field?
Just guys that can process information fast. There's so much on a quarterback, and I know I'm biased, but, from a mental standpoint, the toughest position, I think, in all of sports, they have so much on their plate, throughout the course of a game. And so it's just, being able to process information in real time and distribute the football and run our offense the way we see fit. We talk about it all the time. It's kind of like flying a plane. You've got all these gadgets and instruments and chaos going on around you, but you got to know where to look and what gauges and switches to flip, so to speak. And I think, both Grant and Jason, with the experience like we talked about, doing a good job with that right now.
How much do you throw at them right now? I mean, do you throw the whole thing at them and say, can you sink or swim with this, or is it sort of pieces that you're giving them?
I don't know if there is a right way, but we're throwing everything at them. We've had, 8 or 9 installs. So we're not babying them at all. And just been super impressed, with the group as a whole, the way they've been able to take all that, because it's all new to them. Coaching. We got a new coaching staff. We got new terminology, new verbiage. We call coverages different than what they're used to. We call protections different. We have signals that they have to remember. So just the entire group from top to bottom, to be able to process and handle all that like they have, I've been super impressed with all of them, but especially Grant and Jason.
How difficult is it? You mentioned kind of that aspect of it, where everybody's trying to learn this new system.
Right.
I'm sure you've been in that position many times before,
Sure.
where you've got quarterbacks trying to do that. How tough is that aspect? Just all the new terminology and stuff. How tough is that to grasp?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, super tough. Like bulk loads of information thrown at them at one time, and then they have to make the real-time decisions with it. And we talk about all the time, in the quarterback room, we kind of call it the other 22. There's 24 hours in a day. Every team kind of spends somewhere around 2 hours on the field practicing. So everybody's going to put that time into it. Well, what are you doing the other 22? Are you preparing yourself? Are you going back and you're looking at extra film on your own? Are you going back and rehearsing the terminology and, the calls to the O-line on your own? Are you going back and looking at your playbook? Are you going back and looking at your notes you took in a meeting? You have to spend time outside of the facility, especially at the quarterback position. You have to spend extra time. And I think just seeing them and how they've absorbed all this information, you can tell they're using their time wisely, outside of the facility.
So it is obvious that you can tell, like, okay, these guys
Absolutely.
are putting in the work outside of it.
Absolutely. There's no way they can handle all this if they didn't.
So how did the scrimmage go for the quarterbacks? How do you think they performed on Saturday? And are they ahead of where you thought they would be, behind, or kind of, about midway through spring, or about on target?
I think they're on target to actually a little ahead. Again, with all the install and all the information we've thrown at them and the way they've handled it, but the scrimmage, and not just the scrimmage, I think, all 9 practices. I think if you look at our competitive reps, the completion percentage, I think as a group, we're probably 67, 68, 69% completion, which to me, with a new offense, is outstanding. And I think through time and the more reps we can bank with all this new stuff and all these new concepts, I think as time goes on, they'll only get better.
Does Conor spend any time in the quarterback room anymore?
Obviously early on he spent all his time there, and I think maybe sometime last week, we kind of moved him around a little bit to other spots, but we hadn't closed the door completely, on the quarterback position or him lining up and taking some snaps there, throughout the course of a game. But he's just such a special talent. Number one, such a competitor. The locker room loves him. Our job as coaches, is to find ways to get him the ball if it's not the quarterback position. So spring's the best time to experiment with things like that. So we've kind of threw that out there to him, and just like we all expected, he didn't hesitate. His direct quote to us, when we kind of presented the thought to him, was, "I'll do whatever's best for this team," and that's what we expected from him.
What have you seen from the younger guys, Taj and Devin, in the early going?
I think a lot of talent, with both those guys. With young guys like that is where you do concern yourself with how much information and how much install you do feed to them. And, you can tell they're getting a little bogged down with that. And any time as a quarterback, if you're out there having to overthink things, well, you're never going to use, all your God-given ability. And you can see that at times with those guys. And then there's been flashes with both of them, that you think, hey, they really got it. They understand. But again, just the youth. This is Taj's first, I think this is his first spring ball. So you expect him to be a little behind as compared to a Grant Wells or a Jason Brown. And, Devin, early enrollee, should still be in high school right now. So those guys are right where, I expected them to be.
With Wells and Brown kind of ahead of the pack, do you not envision, Blumerick was a kind of a runner, Bullock maybe more of a dual threat, not as many designed runs then? I mean, are they more kind of guys that you would kind of keep in the pocket?
We'll see. And that's, and both of those guys have not carried the ball a ton in the past. But I don't want them believing that they can't. Sometimes you almost have to give guys confidence that they can be a threat with their legs. And I think in certain situations, absolutely we can let both those guys carry the ball, because you don't have to have a guy that can take it 60. You got to have a guy that can go move the sticks for you and generate first downs, and I think both those guys can do that.
And in terms of the vertical passing game, Brent Price said early on it was kind of a work in progress, that's something that typically takes a longer time to develop. Have you seen flashes from that in terms of, stuff downfield, 20 yards or more and things
no
like
doubt. And I think probably, just looking at Grant, to me, that's one of his strong points is his deep ball accuracy, just through 9 practices. Whether we're running routes on air or running against the defense, you can kind of get a sense of somebody's deep ball accuracy. And, in my eyes, that's one of his strengths.
How fun has this spring been for you now that you don't have to worry about
Right.
life as
Right.
life as a coordinator? You
Right.
can kind of just focus on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
How much fun are you having?
I'll start off by saying it's been different, different because, I don't know, 13, 14 years of calling it, you kind of get into that groove of that's how you operate throughout practice. But it's been fun, just being able to mold those quarterbacks. And especially I think it was kind of needed because being a coordinator and being a quarterback coach, two pretty big jobs. And, when you have the guy that does both, one spot usually gets slighted, and it's usually the quarterback coach. You don't give those guys the attention that they need. So it's been good from that aspect of just honing in on them every single play, and trying to coach those guys every single play. So it's been fun, less stress, less pressure, but it's been fun.
For a guy like Tyler Bowen, doesn't have much. He has a little, but not a ton of coordinating experience. What's that relationship, through the spring been like so far with him?
I think the relationship with our O staff as a whole has been just phenomenal, incredible. It's kind of rare having so many guys come from different spots and different systems, but just I think it's been a good mesh. I think we're all learning from each other. I think we're all open. That's the first step. You got to be open to learning from somebody else. I think we're all open to that, and Tyler's been great. All those guys have been great. So I think it's a good mix of coaches in that room.
Have you gone live with any of the quarterbacks at all so far this spring?
No, we have not.
Do you think you will with any of the
We kicked around the idea the other day. I don't think we've made a final decision on it yet, but we're thinking about it. Maybe a couple of these practices, down the stretch here, possibly of making those guys live, but no final decision yet.
Would that be reserved for guys like Taj and Devin, or would you consider, doing some snaps with Jason and Grant?
Probably the younger guys, probably Taj and Devin, just to get a feel of how they're going to operate when they're live.
And I know you probably won't say for sure, but is there a benefit to when spring's done to naming a guy the starter, or is the benefit to sort of keeping it open to see where the growth is? I mean, how definitive do you think you want to make things kind of in the next couple of weeks after the spring game?
I think if you have a starter, I think certainly you probably need to name him. If everybody feels good about one guy, I think your team, your locker room needs to see that, so they can kind of start rallying behind a guy and building their confidence and belief in, hey, that's our guy, because that's so important. That's so huge, the confidence and belief that the team, that the staff has in you as a quarterback. So, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn for Coach Pry, but I think if there is, a definite winner, I would expect for us to name him.
One more out on Zoom. Tim Sullivan on Zoom.
Brad, you mentioned a little bit about Grant's strength with the deep ball. What are the aspects of each of the two guys that are kind of ahead in the running for what you really like, what they kind of bring to the table that has them kind of above Taj and Devin?
I'll start with Grant. Looking at him, just really good accuracy, has arm strength. I don't know if he's got elite arm strength. I would probably call it, very good arm strength. I think he processes information fast. I think he sees the field very good. Not everybody with quarterback talent can play quarterback, if that makes sense. He's got the skills, he's got the talent, but just the way he flies the plane and the way he can operate through progressions and reads with his vision kind of separates him, a little bit. And then with Jason's just resourceful, in my eyes. He gets the most out of every play, every situation. He grinds out completions, probably as well as anybody I've ever been around. And then that experience, both those guys, they've been in the battles, they've been in the wars. They both have that experience, and that's kind of a security blanket for me as a coach.
One more, David Teal.
Brad, you mentioned a collective completion percentage in the mid-60s earlier. How has ball security been?
Ball security's been great. I mean, and that's something I've been really pleased with. I think Grant, and I may be out of line here, but I think Grant, I think he's thrown one pick in 9 games in competitive reps, or 9 practices in competitive reps. I think Jason's thrown one. So ball security's been really good. Knowing when to give up on a play, I think has been really good for those guys. They don't try to force. They know to hit a check down or throw the ball away or begin the second play with their legs. Been really impressed with that. So 9 practices in, very happy with it.
All right, thank you, Coach. Coach Bowen coming up next.
Thank you.
Hey, Brad.
Thank you.
Hey, Brad. When you say grind out completions,
Yeah.
like kind of finds a way to get the ball to
Yeah,
how
yeah,
can you
and it's, you know, you got